Joaquin Romero joins us today on the New Mexico Suncast to talk about the New Mexico Suncast news hit. Joaquin, what's happening that's really relevant today?
Oh man, we got a bunch of news around New Mexico. The top story I think we want to get into first. Obviously, a lot of fallout still from Ruidoso and the floods happening over there. Just a year after the salt fire devastated that area, lost two young kids just 2 weeks ago.
So there's a campground. Couple takes their kids. They're enjoying the outdoors, and all of a sudden, their two very young children are swept away. I mean, I can't. I know we think about Kirk County. We're all in prayer about what's happening in the hill country of Texas, but this same type of tragedy happening here in New Mexico.
Just heartbreaking. And unfortunately, this is a trend we've seen year over year. It happened in Las Vegas with the devastating fires after Calf Canyon, Hermit's Peak, and now we're seeing a year after what's going on in Ruidoso and the floods happening there. In the news this week, they're under a boil advisory for all their water. This is a result of the flooding and the contamination of the water sources.
And people that are interested, you can go to NM's New Mexico Suncast.com, NewMexicoSuncast.com, and you can read about more details about all of this. We definitely want to ask people to remember 5-year-old Serenity Rose and her 9-year-old brother, Owen Noel. They were the two small children. Obviously, family needs a lot of prayer. I can't imagine being on a camping trip and all of a sudden your kids are swept away. That just, and again, our prayers also for people in Kirk County in Texas and the hill country there. Just things that you would never expect, Joaquin. But I think as people, as we get informed, we'll know more about how we can help. You mentioned the boil water advisories, very important. I mean, the illnesses and things that are waterborne are pretty substantial. Let's talk a little bit about Grant County and what's happening there.
Yeah, we had, it wasn't just the fires that happened. There was fires in Valencia County, there was fires in Grant County, and then again in the Lincoln County Ruidoso area. All of those just happened earlier this summer. We've got ongoing fires in the Gila. Um, all of those areas, people are displaced and families are told to evacuate homes. Some of those families that are, expected to have benefits such as SNAP, um, are given a grace period sometimes if they've lapsed on some of their paperwork. You're not carrying paperwork out of your house; you're carrying family pictures.
Yeah.
Um, and so in the New Mexico Sun this week, we featured an article, and you can go visit it again, newmexicosun.com, talking about some of these deadlines that are coming up for those families to re-enroll with no penalty.
Yeah, and I think that process is pretty simple, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. So, NewMexicoSun.com has that information for you. Let's talk about the America First Policy Institute. They've now launched their New Mexico chapter, uh, releasing. I guess you've been involved with pollsters and people taking polls and what the people of the state are thinking. What do you think the results of that is?
Yeah, really interesting group affiliated with the Trump administration has now announced they have a New Mexico chapter, a new executive director, Vince Torres. And along with that, they released a series of polling, which for an odd year, such as this year, we have mayoral elections, we have municipal elections all across the state, but it's not often that you see people polling in those. Those are not high dollar races. So having a national group come in and release some polling that's recent of New Mexico citizens is always interesting. It's always interesting to get a baseline and see what's going on. They again launched
What
some.
are the top concerns for people in New Mexico? What are the issues they're most concerned about?
Yeah, I mean from the article here on the newmexicosun.com, 46% of New Mexicans believe that New Mexico is on the wrong track. They say that crime.
When you say 46%, you're not saying that 46% of the Republicans or 46 of the Democrats. You're saying 46% of everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and this is statistics, right? They pull a sample size and they try to get a good grasp of who is in this state and who's reflective of the state population and of this sample size, which was a couple hundred, I believe. This is what they project. About half the state is unhappy with the track that we're on. And top of mind is crime and cost of living. These are huge issues. New Mexico, again, one of the poorest states in the nation. We were just ranked again dead last in education. Um, one of the poorest states in America. A lot of families that are hurting, and a lot of
Joaquin, in this information and Taurus, when the America First Policy Institute comes to New Mexico and they find out that the people of New Mexico want to do something about crime, are they able to make some policy recommendations and things that actually might help our state?
Sure, and they're a nonprofit think tank, and so what they do, and many other groups, not just this group that have had a long footprint and a long track record in New Mexico, they can bring forward suggestions to the legislature, to city councils, to other municipalities to implement policy that they believe would be helpful on these issues. At this point, they've just released the polling, and so you know, uh, as part of the media here, you and I, it's interesting to report on having these updated numbers. We've seen year over year these polls come out, and they show similar figures on displeasure with the state of the state.
Joaquin, in our time here, 6, 7 months that we've been working with New Mexico Sun and the NM Suncast, we've talked with Fred Nathan, Think New Mexico, and we've talked to them about education. We've talked to them about, things that are going on in our economy. Those are
Mhm.
two things that Think New Mexico thinks a lot about. Those articles are available on newmexicosun.com. We've also talked with Carla Sontag with the New Mexico Business Coalition about concerns that business people have and things that the state could do to enhance business. We've also talked with our friend Paul Gessing at the Rio Grande Foundation. He has a lot to say about crime. He has a lot to say about education. Um, and I know he also talks about uh, economics with an emphasis on, economic freedom and trade and those kind of things. Uh, Talk to us a little bit about how our state is ranked and what you hope to do with the New Mexico Sun moving forward in letting our audience and our viewers know about it.
Sure. Without getting into specifics, there's a dozen different sources we could pull from. It's unfortunate, but again, we've ranked at the top of the bad lists and the bottom of the good lists, including on education. And this is another poll
Yeah.
doubling down on that fact. But as you said, there are people out there with solutions. We've tried to highlight that. And our goal here at the New Mexico Sun is to highlight those solutions and not the problems exclusively.
Well, and we're going as fast as we can here. We've only got about another minute left on all these news hits, but you can find out more detail about all of this and more at newmexicosun.com. Last thing I'm going to ask you about, I drive through Española all the time on my way to the San Juan River, and I'm sad to hear about corruption in the city government there. What are we doing in the New Mexico Sun to talk about that?
Yeah, really unfortunate. Unfortunately, another chapter of corruption in local government, particularly in Rio Riva County. Our friend, City Councilor Sam Ledoux, friend of the podcast, um, just last week highlighting some of the accusations that their mayor, John Ramon Vahil, is facing. These include embezzlement, ethics violations, some sexual abuse and other things of that nature. Nothing confirmed in a court of law yet, but these allegations are very serious. Someone of that stature, and so we're trying to bring accountability. We're trying to bring sunshine. They say sunshine's the best disinfectant, and so we are reporting on that. You can read those articles again, newmexicosun.com.
Joaquin, why are you involved with the NewMexicoSun.com?
I'm involved because there's a vacuum in the state. We need to bring light to some of these issues that don't always get coverage.
And will you give a voice to people that have answers and solutions that they'd like to propose?
Of course, that's what we're here for. We're here to not just expose the problems, but offer solutions and elevate voices that do offer those solutions. Talk to everybody, and the best ideas will rise to the top.
Love it. Enjoy working with you. We'll see you
Yeah,
next time.
we'll see you next time.